Hello and welcome to the July 26th edition of the SIG CLI biweekly meeting. I'm Sean Sullivan, I'm your moderator. We'll go directly into our announcements, which is that the code is frozen, so you can't get any code in, not until we release in August. And the release date is scheduled to be Tuesday, August 15th. So right around then is when code will unfreeze. So now this is the time of the meeting where we get to introduce new members. And I know that there's at least one who's put an item on the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to introduce themselves to the other SIG CLIers? Okay, why don't we move on? So,
well, should I say something or?
Sure. Now or later would be, and now is fine as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Yasvir. I'm a new contributor here, and I am exploring open source. I am a very extroverted person. I get a lot of energy from working with people. Somehow I'm like 10 times as good when I do. And that's what appealed me to Kubernetes. And yeah, I'll see how things go from there. I'm still looking for a first issue if I can help someone, or if there's something to do, then yeah, if someone can let me know. That's it.
Great. Yeah, I think this will be a great opportunity to find out who else is in the SIG, and then also one of the better forums as well to get a first item or first issue to work on will be the bug triage. That's generally a really good place to start. And of course, Eddie Zaneski, he runs that meeting. And so do you want to say anything, Eddie?
No, welcome. I have a lot of catching up to do at the moment. The bug triage is definitely a good place to join us as well.
So I'm not sure if you already have, but if you join the Google groups, the email group, then you will be invited to all the SIG CLI meetings, and I'll put that into the agenda shortly. And I'm sorry, but I didn't grab the pronunciation for your name. Is it Josweir?
You can just say Yas, it's fine.
Yas? Well, it's
Yes.
a pleasure to meet you, Yas. Thanks for coming to join us.
Likewise. I already got the things in my calendar. I think Eddie helped me, or
Excellent.
someone.
Okay, great. We can move on to the sub-project and KEP updates.
Hello? Oh, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like then I'll also just use the occasion to introduce myself. So I'm Andreas. I'm working for Red Hat, like normally like more like partner engineering and stuff, a little bit less like I'm not a full-time developer. And I wanted to bring in 2 patches, but I realized that I did it all wrong. I should have like first joined the meetings and then picked stuff and pick the items and stuff. I just wanted to bring like 2 things onto the agenda a bit later. If that's possible, cool. I requested edit access. I don't know who can give that to me, but otherwise I'll just do it in the open discussion without putting the items on the agenda.
So generally it's, I think that you may have to join the Google group in order to get the edit access.
Okay,
Yes.
then I'll have to, again, I think I did everything exactly the wrong way around. So I'm really sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah, like I said, today's meeting is going to be pretty low key. We didn't really have a whole lot on the agenda, and so we could be pretty flexible.
Great, thank you.
Great. Is there anyone else that would like to introduce themselves? If not, we can quickly note that at least one of the KEPs did not make the transition from Speedy to WebSockets. Made some great progress. The KEP has been accepted, but the code for the code freeze did not make it in, and so it looks like it's going to be pushed back to 129. And so we'll probably be working on both port forward and the remote command at the same time, or at least they will be released at the same time. That's the plan, is that the remote command code will be, we're still working on it. As soon as the unfreeze happens, we could get that in and then start work on the port forward. We could actually, on Arda, we could start working on port forward even sooner than that, if you like. I think that at least one of the transition to WebSockets PRs is ready and looks good according to Jordan, and then we'll get the second one, the stream translator one, hopefully both of those as soon as the code freeze unfreeze happens. Is there any other KEP update or sub-project update we'd like to add here?
Interactivity flag for delete comments was merged and it is in alpha phase.
Excellent. Thanks, Arda. Let me put that in.
Great job getting it over the finish line, Arda.
Yeah, good job.
Thanks.
One of the many things I started and never finished. I appreciate you.
Thanks. I actually picked the work you have done and push it forward.
That makes me so happy. Thank you.
So is there any sub-project update? Maybe is there anyone from Customize that would like to say anything? Or
I can give an update. So we launched our Customize maintainer training cohort last week. We had our first meeting. About 20 people showed up, which is really looking good. So hopefully some of those people will stick around and we'll get more maintainers.
excellent. Cool. So we can move on to the agenda items if there's no other sub-project or KEP updates. So I'm going to skip the first item. I think Yaz has already introduced himself, and go on to Justin's item.
Sure, thank you. So yes, this is based on the KEP around, I think we've been formally calling it Prune v2, but it's basically the apply set functionality. We did get that in alpha into, I think, 127, so it's there. We've discovered that there is at least one bug. This is a sort of odd one in that it is, in the KEP, we actually said we were going to do something different than what we implemented. And it turns out that what we wrote in the KEP was the right thing that we should have done, because what we implemented has a regression where we cannot apply a CRD and an instance of that CRD in the same apply. Yeah, because it can't predict the resource. I mean, we could make it work, but it would be pretty complicated logic. It would involve like reordering things or iterative type behavior. And so this particular PR implements what we specified in the KEP, and therefore would work around the issue. So basically switching from contains group resources to contains group kinds, which I think is actually more user-friendly anyway. There was some feedback on the KEP, which I think I was confused from like API machinery folk, but I think from a user-facing point of view, kinds is better. So most of it is actually just fixing the golden tests, as it were, the tests. one thing which I think is interesting is, although the feature is in alpha, there is some limited accommodation so that we don't just like drop the previous value. We sort of try to migrate it. And I actually wasn't sure whether we would, what the right thing to do is for features that are in alpha, whether we just say, too bad, so sad, it's alpha, or whether we make some accommodation. The obvious problem being, at what stage should we drop this accommodation for users? And it did not make feature freeze, or did not make feature freeze. Arguably, it's a bug, so we could debate it, or like ask for an exemption, or whatever it's called, if anyone cares enough. But August 15th isn't that far away, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if we have any guidance on what we do about, like, how much we try to not break people that are using feature flagged features.
So I think that it's gonna, because it's alpha, there are no official rules for accommodating people who are using the alpha. And I mean, I wouldn't worry about it, but
it's pretty easy to work around, so it wasn't too bad. But yeah, the only problem is now we have a harder decision, which is when do we remove the accommodation. But I don't know, maybe a beta or something like that.
okay, cool.
Yeah, the prune thing is something that definitely a lot of people use. It's something we hear about very often. We're gonna break people no matter what we do, and that's the reality of it.
But since it's alpha, I mean, how many people do you think really are I mean, it might be good to like try to get some feedback on that, just to see how much complaining, or how much we're going to hear about it. But like, you're right, people do use the pruning, but like, I think the legacy pruning as opposed to this alpha.
It's how long has it been in alpha is the real question, right? A very long time, right?
Well,
is this
since
one of the perma alpha ones?
No, this is 127, right?
Oh, 127?
Yeah.
This is the new alpha, the pruned to 2 alpha.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great. Should we move on to the next item? So Varsha, are you available?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up this super small PR, which introduces the linter, as we discussed in the last community meeting, to stop merging PRs with a no-opt FL flag. We wanted to get this in before 1.20, before the code freeze for 1.27, sorry, 28. But that didn't happen. I'm not sure if it's so urgent, so it should be fine. But just mentioning here to get some eyes so that we can merge this sooner.
Okay, great. So it looks like there are some folks from the API machinery who are also reviewing.
I'm not
with Dr. Szymanski and Wojcik. Okay. And Marley. Okay, thanks for bringing that to our attention. As you mentioned, the code won't be, none of the code will be going in until August. But I think that is a wise idea to get this in front of people before then.
Yeah, I think Mache can approve the hack directory. Otherwise, we need someone else.
Okay. And it looked like there was a release note needed, or at least none put into the release note. Although we may want a release note with this linter change.
Okay, I can add that. I'm not sure how that works. Do I just add is that a change log or something where I can add it?
So usually it's in the template for the PR. There'll be release note and then triple backslashes on 2 different lines. And then if there is no release note, you just put in all capital letters, none in between those triple quotes. And so if you just open another PR, you'll see it in the template for the release note. And then you could copy that. Don't fully open a PR, but pretend to open one. You'll see the release note template. I could show you. I'll contact you afterwards.
Yeah, I can do that. Yep, thanks.
So let's move on to the next PR that we have here, which is Andreas. So Andreas, would you like to drive?
Yeah, so it's technically it's a bug fix, right? So again, it's probably the wrong meeting for this, but like it's like so again, I did this all wrong and stuff and now backwards. It's an alternative proposal to like a fix that Brian had like tried about half a year ago, and then in the meantime another PR merged, and Brian's approach like didn't work anymore. So in order to fix that bug, like it's basically to parse complex JSON expressions, right? So the wait for in the wait for like currently like it breaks on single equal signs, and then breaks the string apart and then evaluates the expressions. And that doesn't work because when you're like subselecting, right? Because the JSON path expressions have like double equal signs to match on a condition. So what I'm trying to do with the PR is just to basically ignore double equal signs and only break on single equal signs. And so that way, like it will be possible to subselect like on a condition, right? When you're like matching conditions and basically going in like on the status fields, for example, and subselecting on them.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've heard I've heard this issue several times, and it sounds like we might have stomped on each other a couple of the PRs here. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. So it's my, sorry, are you just to confirm, are you Brian or?
No, Brian.
Okay.
Brian's here though, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
I stumped.
I have
So
this. I know I did see your comment on my other. So I tried to rebase my PR, but the changes that I made, the way I made the changes made it really difficult for me to rebase what I had already done. So so I'm happy to take a look at your PR, and I have it on my list of things to do. I'll try to take a look at it today and leave some comments if there's anything. But yeah, I think it's fine to go ahead with your PR if assuming that it passes the test cases that I mentioned. That's my only concern, because I know there were some kind of tricky scenarios that it needed to be able to handle. So I'll take a look at that and leave some feedback. And if anybody else does, feel free to also look at it as well.
Sounds good. And I know that I stomped on your feet with that one, so I'm totally fine also to not get it in, right? Like there's like no, I should have joined the meetings first, figured out that if there was a bug fix for this already or not, and then taken on the work. And I just did it the other way around because I don't know, like
you're fine. I mean, the PR was open for a long time and started getting stale, so it definitely needed to be looked at again anyway. So I'm fine with it. I'll look at your PR.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for contributing and joining us. We are stoked. No toe stepped on for sure. Marley, I also tagged you on this as our other JSON path expert. I'm sorry.
No problem. Thanks. Yeah, I've looked at it a couple of times. I just haven't gotten a chance to sit down and really dig into it.
Cool. And so the next one, Andreas, is about kubectl wait.
Yeah, so it's a similar. So it's both are related to like the same work. So this comes like from an issue where like somebody couldn't wait on or wanted to wait on multiple conditions, either or logical and. And then I think Marley suggested that one might add like multiple dash fours and then perhaps a dash four all or something like that. I mean, I'm not really sure if I know this would need a cap and this would need all of the other bells and whistles that this come with it. Again, I did it the wrong way around. But the other thought that I have is so either the parsing for the JSON path expression would need to get better and like one would add like perhaps like an or character or something to make sure that inside the same string one can wait for several different conditions, right? Or one would do it with like these several different command line flags. So I don't really know what's like so this is basically like a POC for how this could look like, or that and it works. But I'm not sure if there's like the best way to wait for multiple conditions, if it's even worthwhile doing it. And with all the problems with the problems, quote unquote, right? With the JSON path expressions, it wouldn't be better to change them, but I suppose if you change them, then you get like or if you change the parsing, right? And if you remove perhaps lazy parsing or stuff like that, then probably you break the user-facing interface. So that's also difficult. So I don't know. It's just, so basically my question is, does it make sense to add like support for waiting for multiple conditions, either logical and logical or is this overkill? And so this was basically just my attempt to fix that feature request.
Yeah, I think that this is quite a bit to bite off, and will require coordinating with the folks that are already working on the wait. And it does sound like it would, especially if we're changing the flags, that it would probably require a cap. So this, just so you know, this would be a significant effort. If in fact that's what the path that we think is useful, and you're willing to pursue that path.
I would have no problem either abandoning this or working on this further, right? Or like, so that's for me that's either or. Again, it was kind of tinkering around with it. Was just like lying around and was just like, oh, I can just try this, right? But again, like neither of these PRs I have to absolutely get in. I think just the experience also for having this feedback now and for talking about this and figuring out how all of this works is also worthwhile. So I might also perhaps just in the future see if I pick up something else, or like an earlier participant said, right? Like that, just to get started with it and understanding how these things work.
So yeah, I think that it'd be important for anybody who's already working in this area, Marley and Brian, if they have any ideas on whether or not it's useful to try to get multiple conditions for wait. Does anybody have any opinions on the usefulness of that?
I mean, I definitely think it's useful. The way that our JSON path stuff works today might make it incredibly difficult to make work. But yeah, since we don't support so much of it, I think that the easiest way with where we're at currently would be to just have multiple for flags get broken out into multiple watcher loops. But I don't even know. I don't know. I haven't looked into it much beyond that.
So that's kind of what. That's what you suggested also on the issue, right? And so that's kind of what I tried to implement. It might be incredibly ugly, to be honest, but like, so what I tried is to keep the existing code and basically just put it into several Go functions, right? And basically then just check, depending on if it's like a for all or not, like if the first one returns positively or if one of them returns positively, then return true, right? Or depending on the flag, right? So yeah, I don't know if you want, if you have cycles, if you want, I don't know how this works, right? But if you want to, or have cycles and just want to have perhaps a look at the PR and like consider this just as a POC and see if this is something that could be feasible, and then perhaps, I don't know, what would take, it would take a cap and stuff, right? And everything else.
Okay, yeah, I think like Sean, if we made it so you just like, it doesn't really change the base level behavior. We just like, if you add more fours and you added like an extra flag that said like, I don't know, something that indicated an and or an or, those would all be additions and thus wouldn't really need a cap or any of the like longer cycles to not break users, I think, right?
Okay. So it would just be an assumption that more flags would be ands.
Well, yeah,
Well,
that's
I
what
think
I'm saying is we could do it if we were just like having more flags, like there would be a default state of probably being and then an extra flag could be passed to define whether it's an and or an or. Of course, you can't really do much more complicated than that, but at the same time, like at that point, I think it just becomes like plug-in territory.
Well, I think you could, I mean, really, you could simulate and just by doing multiple kubectl waits, right? Like if you support or, then you could just do, you know, a wait for,
Yeah, that's true.
So you,
So
optionally, you don't even
always
need to support and really.
Yeah.
So basically,
Yeah,
it's just
fair.
multiplying.
That's a good point, because then we just fall back on basic shell functionality. So it's just the or that it needs to be. Oh God, yeah, I know. I meant to try and import an existing third-party library, but just didn't get very far with it. Justin?
You've teed me up perfectly. On that note, my understanding is that JSON path itself isn't like terribly well defined, and there are other things like JMess path, but also there's cell. Like we don't have support for cell today in kubectl, if I understand correctly, but I know that the API machinery is pushing it pretty hard. I don't know if we have a view on whether cell is sufficiently user-friendly to go into kubectl, or whether it's, you know, CRD authors only type thing. But yeah, maybe that is and if we're gonna have to do a cap well, it's available, we have to do a cap, but if we're gonna have to do a cap anyway, maybe like adding cell support is something to consider.
Yeah, they had to compile in that cell runtime right into the API server. I mean that would be something to consider. It's like an entire runtime into kubectl.
Yeah, but you're gonna build it incrementally otherwise, right? Like so.
Yeah, or add it as, yeah, good point.
Yeah, not having a full JSON path has bitten us so many times and caused so much friction and issues for users. So yeah. Though cell is confusing as hell every time I have to go do GCP IAM principal stuff. So yeah. Philip, you have your hand raised. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to add that there is a longer standing issue regarding this, and I heard from some people to ask for this feature as well. So maybe we can reference this issue also in the PR.
That would be great.
I knew there was another one.
Should we add that to the agenda if possible, a link to that issue, Philip?
Yeah, sure, I can add it there as well.
Great, thanks. Yeah, it feels like there's been quite a few of these JSON issues pinging around for the last 9 months or so.
So API machinery did go through with the cell change though? I guess that went through a cap.
Yeah, so they have it for validation, for validating webhooks or validation within the API server itself. And they haven't done mutating webhooks or mutating functionality through it yet, but that apparently is on the horizon. That's my understanding. Does anybody else have a different understanding of the current state of Cell? Yeah, I know that there's multiple people that I'm working with that I keep hearing Cell work with.
Can someone paste what y'all are talking about into the chat?
I
Because
just did.
the Cell query is hard. Thank you.
I think this is the first one I found.
Yes, I'd also mention, like Eddie, to your point, I think I have also found self-use because of the behavior around optionals. I believe that they've done some special handling so that it is more tolerant of missing fields or something like that. So it's a little bit less fussy than certain clouds IAM providers.
But yeah, I think I'm definitely a big +1 on we should roadmap to do something about JSON path, whether that's actually get a full 2-spec. And the problem has been that the JSON path spec is super light, and what everyone knows as JSON path are like utility functions that certain libraries have sprinkled in. So we support, I'm pretty sure we support the actual spec of JSON path. We just don't have the utility functions that people are used to in other languages.
We don't support the JSON.
Oh, we don't?
We don't support the full spec. We support like 75% of it.
Okay. Thank you for fact checking me.
Okay, well, that turned out to be a much more fulsome meeting than I thought, and that according to the initial agenda, but thanks for bringing all of those issues into the agenda and for showing up. Is there anything that we'd like to talk about before we sign off? Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
I was wondering if you may know of another open source project that has like a very social community like Kubernetes, or?
I know that there's quite a few open source communities. I'm not as involved in many of those, but maybe some other people have ideas on social open source projects. This is the one that I contribute to the most. So there is the CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, which is the umbrella for multiple open source projects. And of course, Linux is a very well-known open source project, and there's tons and tons of them. Does anybody have any ideas? And you say you're looking for the more social ones?
Yeah, where you have like a Slack channel, people are active on it. That's not common.
Yeah,
That's what I saw.
Yeah, the Kubernetes project has tons of different SIGs too. So definitely don't get scared away right now. Like you could definitely hang around with us. Work will definitely pop up to be done. But there's other SIGs and other subgroups and sub projects too. So there's definitely a home for you within Kubernetes, and we can help facilitate that. We need all the contributors we can get. Sorry, I have one last thing. So we actually have a deadline coming up for the 1-minute update video that we get for the KubeCon main stage. So we talked about this, I think, last meeting.
okay.
I forgot to put this on the agenda. We need to record, August 10th is the deadline. So we need to record our 1-minute update for SIG CLI. This is a rad opportunity for us to get in front of the entire Cloud Native Con, KubeCon audience during the keynote and talk about the cool work we did and the stuff we're doing and what we need contributors for. So I could pull some of the stuff that made it into 128, which is cool. We can update. Any other work that we want to make sure we shout out? Any other in progress efforts that we want to let the rest of the world know about? And if you don't think of them now, you can drop them in the agenda in the doc or Slack them to us. But we will probably record that probably the day before it's due, because that's how we usually operate. But
Cool. Thanks for bringing that up, Eddie. I'd forgotten about that. Great. So is there anything else before we sign off? Give you guys 20 more minutes back. Okay, thanks for joining us, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.